Hello friends and fans and Pawn Stars. Today we are going to be doing another Until Dawn video. So, as we've all seen guys, we've got trailers, we've got news for the upcoming Until Dawn game. We're all really excited. It's getting a fresh coat of paint. Whether it needs one or not, we don't know. But nonetheless, Jack and I feel that in order for this game to show value in being remastered, it's going to need some things they're going to do differently, or we need bonus incentives. So this video is just going to simply be all about things we think the Until Dawn game should add.
Okay, so starting off with number one, we've got make Chris more relevant in the prank. So, thing is, we have done a video on this previously where we've said if we was to improve Until Dawn, what we'd actually do is it would make far more sense for the Psycho to go after Mike and Jess, or Mike and Emily, because they're ultimately the architects of the prank in the first place. But because we've seen the trailer, we've seen that Chris is sat in the chair with the gun. That's clearly not going to happen. So what we're hoping is that perhaps Chris is more relevant in the prank, so that it therefore justifies the Psycho going after him, because otherwise the reasons are kind of weak, and maybe like you have to get a little bit far-fetched or reach a lot to try and build a reason as to why Josh would ultimately go after Chris. So yeah, I don't know how they would go about this. Perhaps it would literally just be sticking Chris in the room and not have him passed out drunk. We've seen Beth and Hannah move Josh to the settee, so maybe that is how they're going to play it. Or again, he might just have to have like a more facilitatory role. Maybe he's just, again, passing messages from one person to another. He knows that it's going ahead, but he's not going to pass that information on to Josh. I don't know, but ultimately, yeah, I think he needs to have a bigger role in this prank.
Coming in at number 2, we have multiplayer mode. Now this is a feature Supermassive Games introduced for the DPA series, and they started with the very first one, Man of Medan. And they made this great mode where if you're in a room with friends, you can pass the controller whenever you swap characters. Now they did this because they noted that people were playing Until Dawn in this manner, where you would have, say, maybe let's say there were two of you, where someone's playing as the girls, someone's playing as the boys, that you would pass the controller over if it goes from Mike to Emily, for example. Now, why not implement this? They have all the tools to do this. People were clearly asking for this mode before. Now that they've improved so much with their technology and their ideas, simply implement this into the game. Have a screen at the start where, for example, if Jack and I were playing, we can pick 4 characters each. We're in the same room. And yeah, we can just pass the controller whenever a new character comes in. They have all these new great features. It's time to add this to Until Dawn, which is a great game, but certainly lacks the features that we get now from the DPA games and potentially the Quarry.
Number 3, bonus scenes. This is the big one for me. This is the one that I'm really hoping for when we do ultimately get our hands on Until Dawn Remastered. And again, I think this is a thing that the community have been calling for as well. We're going to start off with some certain characters. Starting off with Josh for me. We've done a video on this. I would personally like it if there was another ending for Josh. Not necessarily because I think he deserves it. I mean, you know, you could say it's quite harsh that he either dies or becomes a Wendigo. But if there was a little bit of branching to show that he could get arrested or that he stays alive, but he has like a bittersweet ending because of his role as the Psycho, I think that would be really good. Coming over to Jess, is certainly a character, and there is some hope for this because apparently she's done some mocap. But with Jess, she does feel like so absent throughout this game. She gets a good bit of airtime, you know, with Mike towards the beginning, but she's, you know, as soon as she's taken, that's basically it, and that's if the girl stays alive. So it'd be brilliant if we could get some more Jess in this game. And a sort of outside shout from me is actually that we could have a scene with Hannah. And this is inspired through, like, I suppose the flashback from the Quarry. But I feel like, to come into, like, as a side tangent, for us, I think the sanatorium scene, I think, is it the second sanatorium scene with Mike, or one of the dead scenes in the game, I feel like could be replaced. And I feel like it would be really cool if we could have a flashback scene with Hannah, maybe like after she's fallen down into the mines. We could have her there. She's a little bit disorientated. Obviously Beth is there. It's going to be dark. You've got Wendigos knocking about. You could see her, like, not necessarily start to change, but you could see start the effects of like hunger and stuff. It might not even be a very long scene, it would be pretty cool to actually, because I think we would then play as near enough every character or all of the teenagers, obviously disregarding the Stranger and Doctor Who, of course. I think that would be a really cool addition.
At number 4, we have new features. Now, when we got The Devil in Me, the last DPA game as of the making of this video, we were introduced to a bunch of new features, such as new movement capabilities with running, jumping, climbing, tool-based puzzles, and an inventory system. Now, I think you could easily implement quite a bit of this into Until Dawn. Now, I am going to be realistic and say not all of them would work. So if you have the same map, you probably couldn't do the crawling, you probably couldn't do like the climbing or the shimmying, based off of the camera angles that Until Dawn does have. With the fact Devil in Me was a third-person game, not a lot of this would work. However, I do think 2 of them that I would strongly like to see is the running, because if you're replaying the game, it would mean you can speed through scenes a lot quicker. Like Jack mentioned, those sanatorium scenes, a lot of people have said they are a slog. Imagine if you were Mike and you could just run through, and it might make your life a little bit easier. And I think an inventory system would look good. I think with Until Dawn, often you might have a character who's got a flare gun, or the cable car keys. It might be nice just to have a little display to remind what that character is carrying. I like the idea of like maybe when you're like Matt getting dragged through, you can see you've got like the flare gun in the bottom. Maybe instead of just automatically prompting Matt to shoot or not shoot, maybe the player has to remember that he's got the flare gun and he can see it in the bottom corner, and then he has to ultimately get the flare gun out. So I think, you know, The Devil in Me had a lot of good features that could possibly get implemented into Until Dawn to make this a beefier and kind of more polished, improved game.
I mean, at number 5, we've got balanced character time. Now, this really does feed into my previous point about the bonus scenes. But again, we sort of, we're talking about characters like Jess, Liam's just mentioned Matt as well. They're characters that do sort of fall away a little bit. I mean, they are characters that can be easily killed off. And I think that will vary from playthrough to playthrough. But maybe having something as like simple as the DLC, you know, with like Emily and Matt, maybe that's default in like sort of the playthroughs that players get to experience. Taking some scenes out and just seeing what other characters are getting up to, that would be pretty cool. And just generally balancing it up so that I think that all of the characters get a slightly more airtime.
Coming in at number 6, we have less tacky jump scares. Now, this is one that might be quite difficult, maybe unrealistic, because if they are putting a fresh coat of paint on the game, it is going to be the same game, but and the jump scares are going to stay there as well. But one of my biggest criticisms for Until Dawn was that I found the jump scares very tacky. Often you would look through a window or you would open a door, and then the camera would zoom in, the music would quiet down. You knew it was coming. And personally, and I know a lot of other people share this sentiment, I prefer eerie. For me, the scary moments of Until Dawn is when you're first walking through the sanatorium as Mike, and you're kind of scurrying around trying to find clues, and then the shadows on the wall. I prefer that kind of horror. I wasn't a fan of, for example, looking through the viewfinder or the telescope and just sort of seeing a random Wendigo's face show up with a random like bit of like piano score just blaring in your face where it tries to jump scare you with something jumping out at you with massive sounds. Now, there's Until Dawn has a massive chance here to not only take some of those jump scares away, but add different kind of horror scenes in elsewhere. So not only would we be playing the game fresh, but we have the opportunity to get spooked in different ways because we won't be expecting these jump scares. I know Until Dawn does heavily lean into that 80s trope where, you know, you've got like doomed teens inside a lodge, they're abandoned and they're easy pickings for whatever's out there. But I do feel like they could steer away from this somewhat. So please, Until Dawn, Ballistic Moon, you need to remove those tacky jump scares.
Number 7, having more relationship dynamics being fleshed out. So, for example, I mean, they do set this up early on in the game. You've got this dynamic of obviously Emily used to be with Mike, but in the main game it's Jess that's with Mike, and obviously Emily is now with Matt. And also the fact that Chris and Ashley could potentially become a couple. And I think that I suppose the one with Chris and Ashley perhaps the one that needs the least work, because they can ultimately kiss at one point and you assume them to be a couple. But I think perhaps it'd be quite interesting if you could, like, even on like an achievement basis, have, you know, the exes get back together. I know that earlier in an early build of Until Dawn, Emily was actually meant to go to the sanatorium with Mike. So maybe if your playthrough goes a certain way, she can actually go with him, and that could spice that scene up a bit if it is implemented in the game. And ultimately that could maybe lead to a point where they get back together. And same if you think about like Matt and Jess, they seem to get shipped a hell of a lot more than Matt and Emily. And if Jess does get more scenes, like I said earlier on, that's something that could be potential as well. So like couples are like changing over the course of a playthrough. I think it would be just a nice tiny little difference that they could implement.
Number 8, we have DLC outfits. Now, this is me ripping a page out of the Quarry's book because it's something the Quarry did, and I think it went down a tree. A lot of people like the fact that we had these 80s outfits. Now, I'm of the opinion that this Until Dawn, although I'm glad it's getting a remaster, I just still don't think it needed to happen. The game still looks great. It only came out in 2015. So I need incentive. I need bonus things. How do you do that? Give us some cool new outfits. I think 80s would work. It worked for the Quarry, and I could see Sam, Jess, Josh all in their like 80s things. I can see Mike in like a varsity jacket. I think that would look pretty cool. But yeah, you could do a whole range of things. And even then, I think it could be a good business move from Ballistic Moon as well, because not only that, but you know, you could put like a deluxe edition Until Dawn on it, and then people can pay extra and they can get a bit more penny bang for their buck by giving the fans some DLC outfits. It doesn't seem like a massive ask because it's just like simply a different skin. And you know, it could make other replays look cool as well, like having an 80s Until Dawn playthrough. So yeah, something quite simple, but something I think fans would love to see.
Number 9, having an alternate cut. So of course this is straight ripped out of the Dark Pictures anthology with the curator's cut. I think it would be amazing. It's not going to happen, but I think it'd be amazing if Until Dawn had some form of alternate cut. The number of scenes that you could play around with, because the people are naturally in pairs, aren't they? I think of even like something simple like Chris and Ashley when they get separated and that door slams on them, and you're playing as Chris at the time, and I think, you know, what happens if you're playing as Ashley there? They pull a similar stunt in Little Hope where you play as Daniel in theatrical, but in curator you play as Taylor, and behind that door you get a whole flashback scene that you wouldn't have seen on theatrical cut. They could do little things like that. I'm not saying it would be like a massive overhaul job, because I think that would take a lot of work, but to have like little moments like that in a different version of seeing the game, I think it would be really welcome for fans.
Number 10, we have old versus new toggles. Now, when we recently looked at the gameplay trailer, a big point fans were talking about is how this new game seems to have removed the blue filter. Maybe just from the early point where you've got like the sunlight theme that they're bringing in for the earlier chapters. But a lot of people say that like that blue filter was Until Dawn's identity, and they're quite sad to see it go. I think you could easily make something out of it where you just give fans the choice. You see it, for example, in the Resident Evil games. The Quarry did it as well, where you can have different filters, where you can have an 80s filter, you can have an old-time grainy film filter, you can even have black and white. I think it would just be a really cool feature to have Until Dawn in all these different filters, where you can get that different style of gameplay as you're playing the game. And it doesn't have to stop there just for the filters. I think you could also have it for the score. So there's all this talk about how Jason Graves could be coming back, he might not. We have heard that there is going to be a different score on Until Dawn. I think a lot of fans might be outraged by that, because certainly in my opinion, you know, I'm old school, I like the nostalgia, I think it is a great game. I wouldn't want to change it. Now, if I'm playing Until Dawn, I want the old score. I want to go down memory lane with the game. But, for example, one of my favourite remasters is Spyro Reignited. They made a new score for it, and I think fans were kind of outraged because it is a memory lane game for them. So, Toys for Bob did this insane thing where they gave us the choice. It starts off with the new score, but you can simply hit the pause menu, go to the old score, and if you're there for nostalgia, you can listen to the old thing. But if you want that new experience, that new raw, see what they've done, you can toggle on the new one. So yeah, just I think giving that choice to the fans would just be really beneficial.
Coming at number 11, we've got choice statistics. So this is another one that I've actually suggested for the Dark Pictures as well, but I think would equally be very good in Until Dawn as well. So this one is rooted in just basically whether it's at the end of a chapter, probably at the end of a game. It would be really good, I think, especially now that this is going on PC and PlayStation, of course, already. we could filter like what other people made, like in terms of the decisions they made. So you could compare your choices with the rest of the community, which I think would be amazing. And we got to think as well, like we've obviously played Until Dawn previously. We know the branching, we know sort of how everything works. But there's gonna be a lot of new people jumping into Until Dawn for the first time. And I think it will be like amazing for them to see how far the branching goes. They've got the butterfly effects for that already, but if they had statistics alongside as well to see how they compared, and maybe there's someone that did actually get Chris to not shoot Ashley, you know, and they might feel like they're part of the minority. There's like little choices that they could feel like they were very rewarded on, especially if they got everyone alive and it comes up at the end that only them and 10% of people kept everyone alive. It's sort of really rewarding for the player. So I think certainly statistics should be a very worthy addition in this new Until Dawn game.
And our final point at number 12 is a chapter select mode. Now, have you ever tried to get the platinum or get all the trophies for Until Dawn, and then you see yourself having to replay the game from the very start just to go towards the end where you can only make a few choices? Maybe you want to get the one where it's all girls survive. Maybe you want to save Jess, but you killed her off in chapter 4. Imagine instead of having to play the whole game from the prologue, you could simply rewind back to chapter 4 and then successfully do the Mike chase scene where you get to save Jess there. I just think from a rewind replayability mode, it would just be very beneficial for fans having to trudge through the whole game again. Instead though, you can just simply go to the exact chapter you want, make the key choices you want to change. We see other studios do this, whether Telltale do it, Quantic Dream do it, and Don't Nod do it as well. Especially like I can note Before the Storm, where you've got the collector mode at the end. Maybe have this when you complete the game, just to give fans just that option, just to pick up where they left off at a certain point. I think it would be nice to hold the fans' hand a little bit when they're replaying the game, and I think chapter select would be very beneficial. But guys, thank you. I mean, those were 12 things we think Until Dawn could implement to make the remaster or the remake better. Let us know what you thought of our 12 opinions, whether you'd like to see them. Maybe there's some that you disagree with, let us know in the comments. And if there's other ones you thought of, please let us know, because there's so much this game could benefit from, and we want to hear those, guys.
And guys, if you're finding us for the first time, do check out the podcast tab on our channel, where we've got a chapter by chapter analysis of the original Until Dawn with our guest starring Anya. It's a very good watch, do check that out. And also check out the Until Dawn bonus vids playlist, where there is a plethora of Until Dawn videos to keep you busy before Until Dawn Remastered comes out later this year. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.